Alright, hello and welcome to another video. Been a bit, but we are in the Legacy of Frisia event. I've never actually said that out loud, I think that's how it's pronounced. But we're about a week in, and I figured I'd show off the character I've been playing so far, and that I'm going to keep playing for the foreseeable future here. So I wasn't sure if I was going to play this event, because I was honestly looking... I think it's really interesting, all the new summons and stuff. I think it's fun. As someone who likes to tinker with characters, obviously it's a lot of fun. I just couldn't really find a build archetype that I liked, but after crying about it on on Discord, I got linked a concept of this build by the Discreet's Will, and it just really tickled my fancy. It's very interesting. So this is a Rage Vortex of Berserking Whisperer that you can see in the background here, and it is pretty wild. It's kind of funny. It sort of plays, it's almost like a weird RF build, except you can sort of scale it infinitely almost, which is kind of fun. It's sort of the thing I like because of some pretty broken mechanics with it, just in general. It's not the most insane skill ever, but it's a lot better than you think it might be, just due to some quirks with how it works mechanically that I'll go over. But yeah, so this is the character I'm doing right now. It's basically, it's mostly a map blaster right now. You can see that it's a very much a headhunter build. It's very much built around abusing headhunter. Most headhunter mods work really well with the build, and as you can see in the map here, this is a wisped 8 mod, like all the rares have 8 additional modifiers, Delhi tier 17, so it's actually really rippy, but it's really good for a character like this that can really abuse headhunter, because obviously you kill one mob and you get all 8 mods, and you basically stack up infinite headhunter mods really quickly and just blast through. But I think the build is just solid without that even as well. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. This is going to keep scaling. This is what I'm going to keep scaling for the upcoming weeks here. So let's go over sort of what it is. Okay, so here's the character, currently level 97 in League here, and yeah, so this is what I've been doing. So first of all, let's go over sort of what the skill is to begin with, right? So Rage Vortex of Berserking is it's an alternative skill gem to Rage Vortex, and it's sort of, the way it works is there's a spin move, and if you use it while you have above 10 rage, you create this RF around you. So basically, you see I have some rage right here. I use the skill, it costs some life, and then you get this RF around you, or this big spinning blade around you, and as you have it around you, it continuously drains rage at an increasing rate, as you can see here. So it's sort of, it drains rage similar to how Berserk works. Obviously it's of Berserking, right? So that makes sense. I believe it starts at 3 rage per second, and then every second you get 20% more rage loss rate. So I believe that is slightly slower than Berserk, but it's the same sort of concept. So you know, obviously with that, you have to solve rage gen, and you have to solve a bunch of stuff in order to get that working most of the time, but we can do that. And not only that, since this is a skill that you press once and then it's just on you for a bit, you can do a bunch of wacky things with snapshotting, and that's sort of what makes this skill kind of really broken, I think. Just sort of mechanically. I think numerically, you know, there's more broken stuff out there. Obviously, this is not the highest damage build in the game or anything, but you can get it very high considering it's one of these skills that feels like it shouldn't be able to scale as high as it does, but just because of how it works mechanically in the game, you can really kind of get it up there, especially when you really min-max the character. So what happens with the Rage Vortex of Berserking is the RF around you, the actual Rage Vortex around you, snapshots the links that you use when you cast it and exerts used when you cast it. So what that means is that if you, before you cast it, every time use Intimidating Cry, which gives your exerted attacks double damage, so you just do that to exert it, and then you pop your thing. Now this thing, for its entire duration, deals double damage, which is 100%. So that's very strong. And also, since it snapshots the links, you can see right now what I'm using is a Squire setup with links, and then I have a link weapon here. This is obviously a really bad one. I haven't made a good one yet. But imagine this is like a, 6-link sword, like Elder Shaper sword, one of those standard things. You can get a 12-link setup going with this, and it'll snapshot the links. So the concept there is you cast your Vortex, or well, I guess you would snapshot, right? You snapshot, you cast your Vortex, and then you weapon swap to a stat stick, because it snapshots the links, but the stats still get dynamically updated to use this weapon right here. And then also you can use another shield as well, because you don't need the Squire, because you've snapshotted the links. This makes this skill scale way above what you might think it does, because you get, a full link weapon setup alongside a stat stick like this. And this obviously isn't a perfect one, but this is a pretty good one. You get all the crit, all the attack speed, the flatlining and the pen there, and then hits can't be evaded, which is a temporary thing. Yeah, it's a setup where your Rage Vortex always deals double damage, and you get 4 links for free on it, basically, which is very powerful. Also, you get a bunch of gem sockets, which is something worth mentioning. You get, since all your gem sockets for the actual skills setup you're using is in your offhand, you got a bunch more sockets to use. You can see I'm not even using all mine yet. because I haven't really figured stuff out to do with it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So this is a setup that has been used in previous leagues. People were doing this last league, and people were doing this in Necropolis, I know. So this is not my invention or anything, honestly. There's some things in this event that makes this a lot easier to set up and a lot higher potential, I think, and that is the Whisper Ascendancy, right? So as I mentioned, you need to solve rage cost, right, for your rage vortex. This has a berserk-like effect where it continuously drains more and more rage. So I believe the setups previously that I've seen, people were doing Chainbreaker, which is the timeless keystone where it converts your regen into rage regen. So that's that works, but it's a very high investment comparatively to what you can do now, because now you've got the Whisper Ascendancy, right? So not only does the Whisper Ascendancy give you all the broken dex mana stack and stuff, you can see that I am indeed stacking mana. I'll go over all the benefits of that here in a second. But also, you have this right here, which is gain 10 rage after spending a total of 200 mana. So this is very strong because we can create these feedback loops where you continuously generate enough rage to just keep this up for a very, very long time. Because I believe the old setups you used to only get like, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds of uptime on this or something like that. And you have to, and they also used a bunch more exerts. So it'd be a lot clunkier to play because you have to multiple exerts and then you have to, reapply your rage vortex way, way more often. But now what you can do is you can use a setup sort of like this. So this is my stick link right here. So the way we're selling rage gen on this, and this again is not my tech at all. I'm just gonna put that out there, but it is very cool. So basically, this is an Indigon build, right? Indigon gives you increased cost of skills for each of total 200 mana spent recently. So you want to spend a bunch of mana, and it'll make your things cost more, and it'll make him give you a bunch of spell damage. This in combination with Plague Bearer and Automation makes a really cool loop here. So Plague Bearer literally doesn't do anything for the build. It's just there because it's a low cooldown spell that you can spam. So this, with Automation, it just triggers twice every second. You can see right here. And on its own, this thing costs 78 mana. Currently with the setup, I have 2 support gems that don't do anything, but just give this a cost multiplier. So 78 mana, I guess. After ramping up a little bit. This is enough to obviously top rage off on its own, just like that, without Ascendancy. But obviously when you start Blade Vortexing, this is going to drain, and just having this on its own is not going to be enough. But because we have Indigon, what we can do is, and I'm not going to be able to show this because this is very dependent on leech. You need to be leeching in order to get this working, but basically we use Arcane Cloak. So obviously this on its own doesn't cost very much mana, right? So it's not going to get any, it's not going to start ramping Indigon on its own because it just plainly doesn't cost enough. It needs to cost above 200 in order for it to start ramping with Indigon. Obviously it doesn't do that, but if you start off by casting an Arcane Cloak, which spends 64% of your current mana, so currently my mana is 8.6k, so 64% is like, what, 5,000-6,000, something like that. It instantly spends that. That gets your Indigon going, which makes this cost a lot more. And as long as you're leeching and topping yourself off, this is just going to keep ramping and ramping and ramping itself. And that's going to spend that more and more mana, and that's going to ramp you, give you a ton of rage with this energy, and that'll keep the rage vortex up, not exactly permanently, but it's like 30-40 seconds in like really juiced naps, and even like probably even more than that occasionally. Like it's really up for a long time. As long as you have mobs around you. Obviously, if you aren't leeching, then this is going to just end up fizzling because it'll cost more and more and you can't recover it back. But yeah, as long as you're leeching and hitting things, it'll stay up for a very long time, which makes a very comfortable playstyle as well as, considering that we only have one cry. So it's only one exert. You just switch and then you do that and then you switch back and then you Arcane Cloak and then you're just off to the races. And not only does it ramp your rage, it also ramps your Indigon. So you basically have full Indigon uptime once you have the setup going and you're leeching. You get that full 2000% spell damage, which is pretty juicy. Now, this setup works really well for mapping, for single target. I'm tinkering with it a little bit. Theoretically, it should work. I think it might just be that I need to get a little bit more mana and stuff in order to get that going. But theoretically, it should work fine on single target as well, and that'll make the skill actually have pretty good single target as well in the very late game. Early on, I think the single target is going to be a little rough. This is generally a very sort of late game build. I would not start this or anything like that. I did try to do that this league, and I had a bad time. If you've been watching the few streams I've been doing in the start of this league, it's been a rough start because I swapped over to this very early, and yeah, you don't want to do that. But this character right now is actually in a very comfortable state, so that's why I felt comfortable showing it off in this video, because I think this is a quite a cool little setup here. But yeah, so that's the whole loop setup going. Plague Bearer, Indigon, Arcane Cloak to sort of start the feedback loop, because Arcane Cloak, again, it makes it so that the Plague Bearer costs enough to where it'll ramp itself with Indigon. Now, this I actually found to be not always enough rage gen, strangely enough, so I actually have a few more. I think this is a little overkill, but I put 2 banners in here, Dread Banner and War Banner. Again, these don't really do anything, but they are also spammable skills. They have 1 second cooldowns, and they, as long as you're hitting things, these will spam with automation. They'll just keep putting them down, so it's the same sort of thing as Plague Bearer, where it's just there to cost mana. I don't think I need 2 of these, but I just put them in for now. Has been working all right. There's obviously some math you can do with this in order to figure out the exact random amount on things. I will do that eventually. I've not done that yet. I've just been playing. But for now, this works. I'm probably going to drop 1 or 2 of both of these banners. I don't know if it's entirely necessary. But for now, those are in, and it has been working fine. So that is the whole setup here. You rage gen with Plague Bearer, you snapshots with Rage Vortex, and your 12-lane setup, and then you swap over to really juicy static. And it's a very cool concept, I think. And this combined with Indigon's crazy spell damage scaling. And obviously, we are getting the old Battle Blaze Cry effect from the Ascendancy as well. So, spell damage scales are Rage Vortex. So I'm getting full benefit on the Indigon. We are also using a Manastorm. So this is, since obviously we're freeing up our shield slots, since we don't have to use the Squire because we are weapon swapping, we can use Manastorm. So this is a kind of a broken combo damage-wise, because obviously Indigon solves all your percent damage, while Manastorm solves all your flat. This is a little bit of a weird setup, because you need a lot of mana recovery in order to get this working. So obviously, what Manastorm is that last line right there. When you cast a spell, you sacrifice all mana to gain added maximum lightning damage equal to half of the sacrificed mana for 4 seconds. So importantly, this sacrifice does not count as spending mana for Indigon, so these are different. It would be kind of broken if it did, but it does not, unfortunately. So you have to work around that. But basically, this, as long as you have enough leech in order to just top yourself off constantly, and obviously there's a lot of leech you need, but if you have that amount of leech, or just keep topping yourself off through the Plague Bearers, through everything, then you can just every once in a while, every 4 seconds, you just cast a random spell, and you get a bunch of flat, and that gets scaled by your Indigon, because that's obviously maxed as well. So how am I procking it? Well, currently I'm procking it with Phase Run as the movement skill choice. Gives you phasing as well, which is really nice for this sort of skill, where it's like RF, where you run around. And so yeah, you just, every 4 seconds, you just cast Phase Run. It's kind of handy, because the cooldown of Phase Run is 4 seconds. So as long as you keep pressing this on cooldown, you'll get the Manastorm proc there. And with enough leech, you'll get a full, I guess mine currently, I get what, 4,300 flat max lightning, which is kind of insane. So how am I getting all this leech? This is why we're using an axe. So we're using an axe because of the Settler's enchant. So this mana leech from hits with this weapon as instant enchant is what sort of fuels the entire build and makes it really smooth feeling. Because this is a lot of leech. If you're not played with old style leech, where you just get entirely full instant leech, you might not appreciate how insane this is. But it is a lot. I mean, it's a lot better than just having this mastery for what it's worth. It's obviously 10 times better than this. But yeah, it's an insane amount of leech you get from using this enchant, and it basically just solves all your sustain. A single target, again, it's a little finicky. I need to tweak the numbers a bit, but it is still working single target just fine. I've done a bunch of bossing on it, but it's not like, I wouldn't call this right now a bossing build. I think when you really get up there, when you get like to like 2k dex or something like that, like a really juiced version of this, you can probably just one shot every boss. But this character's not there just yet. But yeah. So that is how we're getting the leech. So that is very nice, and that solves most of the issues. That lets you easily do the feedback loop with a Phase Run, and yeah, it all works really well and is very, very cool. So that is sort of the core few synergies with the build going on. This is what I saw originally when like this build, and sort of got me really hooked on it, because it's just such a bunch of cool concepts, right? It's very much me, I think. I like these builds a lot. And then obviously we are doing the old stat stacking, because I guess that is my thing now. I like stacking things. But I mean, yeah, we're playing Whisperer. Whisperer is just kind of broken. You get this node, which gives you +1 max mana per dex, which is very, very powerful. So we're stacking a bunch of dex. You get this node, which gives you full fizz damage taken from mana for life. This is really powerful. It gives you a lot of fizzment. Obviously with leech, you still have a lot of mana most of the time. So that's a big buffer to your health pool, and makes it so that you don't really need it to even get CB immunity or anything like that, because it all goes off of this massive EHP pool you have. So you can see I don't have a CB jewel right now, and I'm not even, I guess I'm using this mastery and that's about it, but that's been super fine. I haven't even needed it, so that's nice. So yeah, I really like this node. And then the reason why I'm not taking this would be a good node, but like the added lightning damage equal to 4% of your mana, you've so saturated on flat damage in this build already that this kind of doesn't do much to you. It's a fine node, but it's really not that big of a deal. Similarly, because you're maxing out Indigon, percent damage sources from like the tree aren't that big of a deal either. So yeah, keep that in mind while gearing. But yeah, we're stacking mana. So Dex gives you mana. Dex also gives us evasion and accuracy. So you can see that right now. Actually, I am using hits can't be evaded on my weapon. It's because I don't have enough Dex yet. I believe at like 1500 Dex, you can drop that enchant and you'll just be hit capped for free. So that'll be nice. I'll get an additional mod on my weapon. But yeah, right now I kind of do need it because I just don't want to invest in accuracy, and this is an easy way of doing it. So Dex gives it that, and then defensively, it gives you a bunch of percent evasion. So evasion is nice. We're stacking that right now quite a bit as well. So you can see without Flask, I have 26k. With Flask at 90%, and obviously during mapping you have this Flask up most of the time, so that's 90% evade. That's kind of nice. And also I'm doing Wind Dancer. I think it actually is worth for this character to do Wind Dancer, which makes it so that if you've been hit, it completely evade caps us. So yeah, Wind Dancer I think is pretty good actually if you have a bunch of evasion like this. So I've been doing that. Dex also gives us life with these gloves, Shaper's Touch, and yeah, also gives some melee fizz damage, I guess, from these gloves. That's not very relevant, but yeah, does do that, which is nice. I don't think I need to really sell you on the Cosmic Whisper with Indigon. It's a true and tested formula for making a good character. Yeah, it's a very solid shell. Passive tree wise, this is sort of what it looks like. Basically, stat stacking, we're pathing all the way to a bunch of clusters because I'm using currently 2 of these split personalities with X mana, so you want to go over here for those. If I didn't have those, I probably wouldn't go over here. But yeah, some clusters, getting, you know, some leech. So we're getting a leech from this node right here, which gives you mana leech. I am using a strength tattoo to get life leech, and then using Stormdrinker on the large passive here in order to get energy leech. And you see that the hit pool I have are quite large. So this character on this setup right now feels actually very comfortable to play. Good solid levels of tank. Obviously, when we look at the POE and stuff, it's going to have really high numbers because mana stackers are kind of like that. And that's kind of deceptive, obviously, because, you know, the way these mana stackers tend to work, you're spending a lot of your mana. It's not always full. You can't always use all of it as an HP buffer, but still, the character is very tanky. Obviously, almost 4k life, 3k ES, and then 8k mana right now. And this mana is going to be, I mean, it'll probably land like when this character is really juiced up, probably like 16k, I'm guessing. So it'll be really good. But yeah, so we're taking all 3 of these, which is nice. And then obviously we'll leech all 3 because as I went through, we have both mana, life, and ES leech, so all at once. And because we're doing that, I'm also taking this Corrupted Soul notable from the Glorious Vanity keystone. This, if you're not familiar, this is a very, again, it's not an ingenious thing or anything. People have been doing this forever, but it's really good for mana stacking characters that use Minor Matter to actually take this node, because that 50% of non-chaos damage taken bypasses Energy Shield actually helps your character. It's not really, it's, you know, looking at this node, you'd think it'd be a downside, but when you're doing this sort of setup defensively, it's actually more of an upside or anything, because what that means is that it splits all the damage, not entirely equally, but you take damage on all your sources at once, right, when you take damage, which means that all your leech applies to all damage you take all at once, versus if you don't take this node and you get hit, you know, to your Energy Shield, then only your Energy Shield leech applies, and obviously only your Energy Shield recovery, if you had any of that, applies. But whereas if you're taking this node and you split the damage between all 3 types immediately, then all 3 sources of recovery that you have will apply to the damage all at once. And as long as you have decent pools of all 3, it's generally always an upside to take this. So I'm currently enjoying taking this, and there's no real other keystone I think that I really need to take with a timeless node right now. So I think this is a really nice setup. So nice little bonus Glorious Vanity here, gives you a really big juicy mana node right there, which is nice. You get some really cool nodes from Glorious Vanities if you play around in POE with the Timeless Jewel Searcher. You can get some neat stuff. But nothing too crazy otherwise. Yeah, obviously keystone wise, Minor Matter pretty given that we have so much mana. Otherwise, you know, some stat stuff. I'm getting ailment immunity through these nodes right here, alongside implicit on boots and a ancestral vision. So that's cool. I have a Watcher's Eye here. Important note on there is the 10% of damage taken from mana before the life while you have clarity, so that obviously stacks the Minor Matter to give you a 40% DR, which is, or a 50% DR even, which is pretty strong. I'm currently using clarity on my life there with Arrogance. So that is how I'm getting clarity. That's the entire reason to use clarity. I mean, the mana regen is nice and all, but it's like, you know, obviously clarity gives you a flat mana regen, right? So it's not really, it's not really amazing when you have this much, you know, about total mana pool. So that part about it is kind of irrelevant. You're just using it for the Watcher's Eye mod. Then I'm also using the 8% extra evade with Grace. I've gone over in the past why this node is so broken. Yeah, the just flat 8% extra evade chance is very powerful and basically equates to you getting a bunch of extra evasion. So yeah, that's very powerful. Other good nodes you could have is the Clarity Recoup node for mana is very powerful, especially when you're taking the Fizz taken as node right there. Very good. And then obviously there's the where is it, 5% of mana as ES node for Clarity. Basically a lot of the Clarity mods are really good. So stacking any of those are good. Grace is good. yeah, stuff like that. And how am I getting Grace? Well, the nice part about not reserving any of our mana is that we can use Grace with Eternal Blessing. So as long as you don't have any other auras reserving your mana, you can use Blessing, Eternal Blessing here, which gives you a free aura, basically. So basically just get Grace completely for free. Cost no reservation. Obviously, use some mana there because Manastorm, but yeah, no reservation, you just get a free Grace, which is nice. If you want to be less tanky and more fast, you can just do haste in there as well. That'd be also good. As for other defenses, obviously we are suppression capped. Right now it's a little bit scuffed because you can see I'm actually at 94%, but I am suppression capped with this mastery, which is the phasing mastery. 8% suppress while phasing. I think it's actually worth doing on this character because not only do you suppress a lot, so this is going to be up a lot of the time, but also I am casting phase run every 4 seconds, so I'm basically phasing all the time, almost, except for obviously when I'm casting stuff. So, I think it's worth taking. I could just drop this and get suppress from here, and that'll cap my suppress just normally. It's kind of nice having the occasional phasing whenever the phase runs down, so I don't know. For now, I'll be doing this, but if you don't feel like doing this conditional, you could just take that node, and it'll cap you. So that is cool. But yeah, otherwise just rare jewels with like life mana. I think end game you'd probably want to do some Adorn stuff with this. I think I'd have to POB it. I actually don't know if it's entirely worth it. I think I value adorned setups after the nerf a little lower than most people. But it's possible that it's better still. So this is the current POB. I'm probably going to tweak this as I go, but this is what I'm using right now. I'll leave it in a link in the description, and I'll also keep another link in there if I ever update it. So you have a up-to-date one with whatever stuff I've added. But you see, this is the POB right now. Currently at 42 mil DPS, fully Indigon ramped, which I think is reasonable to assume. And then also, these are the life numbers. Fairly reasonable. I think I'm not cheating too much here, I don't think, because I don't even have, there's not even like, where's my... Yeah, like I don't even have Arcane Cloak ticked here. Also, the setup's wrong. There you go. I don't even have this ticked off. If you tick this goes up crazily. But you're not actually using Arcane Cloak in the setup as a guard skill. It's basically mostly just there to start the feedback loop of Indigon. Because if you like use this as a guard skill and you start casting it like every 4 seconds or whatever, that is really rough on the mana. I tried that before, having it like automated, and then you just toggle on the automation every time you weapon swap. It's doable, but yeah, that costs a lot of mana, and that makes the entire thing a bit awkward. I think it's better to just simply use it to just trigger the feedback loop of the Plague Bearer and then not really bother with it after that. It just makes the gameplay a lot smoother, and you can see that the tank levels are really good still. Obviously, this is, again, a little misleading because mana stackers, this is assuming you have full mana, which obviously you don't always have with these setups, especially obviously the setup where you're constantly spending a bunch of mana. Still, I think even if you cut that in half, it still feels like a very shaggy character to me, which feels good. We got nothing too crazy here. If you're curious about the stuff in the POB, I've sort of emulated the snapshotting tech by just adding both weapons together. So you can see that it's the base of the axe that we're using for the stat stick, and then I just added the links from the other setup. And then obviously in the gem setup, it's the full 6 links from the weapon and the squire. So that is sort of how you emulate that, and that is why this weapon looks so crazy. And yeah, otherwise things are sort of like that. This is the actual config. I don't think I've ticked too much stuff. I'm currently using Help Alira for my bandits because getting resist capped, it's kind of rough with the setup actually. You really gotta leverage your options and use everything to your advantage. But yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. Maybe I'll swap that eventually if I can figure my resists out more properly. I actually do have all installed now. I can probably tick that on if I want to. But yeah. So yeah, we're getting Power and Frenzies. Frenzies we are using Blood Rage for. You just cast that at some point during the map, you get Blood Rage, which is nice. Power Charges from Assassin Mark. That is our curse. We are Morkan hitting the Assassin Mark, which works pretty well. For the flasks, I'm just using Bottle of Faith Progenesis. Getting crit cap, it's kind of rough on this build. You need a lot of crit. Because Siege Axes, if you weren't familiar, they don't have a very high base crit. They have 6% base crit, I believe, and that is not very high. So you need to really get your crit up there, but you do have a lot of tools in order to get there. Obviously, you have, from your Link weapon, you can have increased crit strikes. That gives you base crit. You have Bottle of Faith, gives you more crit. Also, the Diamond Flask with the suffix also gives you more crit. So a bunch of stuff there. You can also take crit nodes on the tree if you so wish. But yeah, crit is good. It's one of the better damage stats. Progenesis. It's a very good flask. Surprise, surprise. And yeah, otherwise, again, there's a Headhunter build, which is nice. This is the cheap one. Weird thing to say, but yes, this is the cheap build now compared to Mage Bloods. Especially this league where, you can juice your maps to hell and back, and that makes Headhunters very cheap. I believe they are like 40 div right now, which is, I mean, it's not very cheap, I guess, but I mean, compared to what they usually were a few years ago. It's insane, obviously. But yeah, it's nice. It works really well with this build. Since Rage Vortex is a fizz skill, you deal fizz damage, which means you gain all the fizz's extra models from the Headhunter. Those give you a lot of damage. Headhunter also gives you insane, like, you scale really well with attack speed, so Soul Eater is really good. Obviously, any haste mods are really good. All the defensive mods are super good because you're scaling like all the defenses. And then also you get a bunch of AoE. AoE is really nice on this build, and once you have a few Headhunter stacks, you basically screen wide, and you can even... I've seen some configs of this where you can just stack infinite AoE and you can basically have 2 screen wide circles, which is pretty funny. But obviously I haven't gone that hard on it because I don't really think it's that necessary, but it is funny. But yeah, so that's really good. Basically, Headhunter just scales this build really well. The only thing, obviously, it's not a projectile skill, so it wouldn't scale that stuff, but everything else just works really well with this build, so that is pretty cool. And then, yeah, Manastorm, Indigon, Shaper's Touch, classic stacker things. And then for the amulet, currently using Astromantis. It's just a cheap option. I have not found a priority to upgrade just yet. Eventually, I think you'd probably want a Simplex on here. You could also use one of those Eye of the Great Wolves with mana and increased attributes. Those are okay. I think Simplexes are actually on average a little better. I'd have to POE it more, but I think I'm eventually going to go for a Simplex myself, especially given that those Eyes of the Great Wolves are prohibitively expensive right now, last time I checked. So yeah, they're at least, at worst comparable, at least. So yeah, I'd probably go for a Simplex, which is like dex percent attributes, increased damage per dex, something like that, probably. One of those things. It's pretty good. For the ring, eventually, I'm currently just using a 2-stone that I'm Colonus touching, but eventually you'd want a helical. You'd probably want like dex all res, and then, I don't know, multi and something else probably, and then you'd probably want to reflect it. But that has been a little bit out of my budget yet. I'll do it probably, it's up there in the priority list of upgrades, but I think I want to fix my weapons first. So it's a little bit scuffed. But yeah, otherwise nothing too crazy there. I used to pass through the middle. So before I got these clusters are a little bit pricey. I made one and then I bought the other one. Before I got those done and before I got the split personalities, I was passing through the middle, and that's pretty good. And I believe I probably have a tree for that. Yeah, this is what I was doing before. This is a lot lower. This is yeah, my gear was a lot worse here, but this is the pathing I was using before. I was just doing brutal strength here for all the dex nodes and stuff. It's pretty good, not too bad. And then you obviously get minor mana through here. This is fine. If you don't need the clusters, going through the middle is good. You get a lot of solid mana nodes, and it's a good spot for Thomas Jewel. You can even go like you can still throw a glorious, maybe glorious vanity is a little sketchy here, but you can throw some text on there, it's good. But yeah, as for the other gear, I mean, the chest piece, you just use a necrotic armor. This is just standard sort of big, fat evasion and shield armor with dex on it, suppression. Eventually, you want the grasp mail attack speed per dex mod on here, which you recombinate onto it. I have not prioritized getting one of those yet, but that is a very big upgrade, so eventually you do want that on your chest. So that will be very nice whenever that happens. Otherwise, boots, nothing too special. Again, I'm just using fugitives with a life, dex, res, and then the onslaught mod. The onslaught mod's really nice because you could run a silver flask, but I like using a jade because I think the evasion's good. So getting the onslaught mod on the movement speed there is good. I'm a bit of a coward, so I haven't actually gone for the veiled orb yet on these. I should do that eventually, just lock veiled in order to try and actually unveil that move speed properly, but for now it's fine. Crafted is fine. Yeah, eventually I'll unveil it and make it a really good pair of boots, but for now I just haven't bothered because that's probably, I'm gonna miss a bunch of veiled orbs and it's gonna be sad and I'm gonna cry, so I'm not feeling super enticed to do that just yet. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's basically the gist of the character. It's been a lot of fun. It's, again, this is a setup that I definitely wouldn't swap too early. I would wait until you have a lot of this gear before swapping over, because this can be a little rough. But once you have it at this state, it feels very smooth, very cool, and it's very fun. It's like really speedy, because obviously you have perma phase run, because you're not casting any spells, right? You're just toggling on your rage vortex, and then you're just spamming phase run, which means that the phase run never gets interrupted, which means that you have basically permanent phase run, that's a lot of move speed, and obviously Quicksilver and stuff. So even though it's not a mage flood build, you still get a lot of speed out of it, especially when you steal the Headhunter haste mod, and you get obviously crazy, but that's obviously Headhunter stuff, just carrying. But it's very fun. If you're curious about the damage ceiling, you saw the PB is like 50 mil right now. I believe you can get up to like close to $1 billion if you get Omega gear. That's maybe a little generous, but like at least 500 mil is very, very doable. And I have some higher end pobs that have shown that is doable without too much POB cheating. So that is very cool. I just like having that ceiling. I've never actually played an RF build because I feel like the ceiling is a little low for me. I like having these builds that can just scale forever, and RF builds have always been sort of high floor, low ceiling sort of things, which usually isn't my style. But this build sort of ticks all those boxes because it sort of has the RF play style, but it's just very high ceiling. You can switch so much stuff into this, and it's very, very cool. So I've really been enjoying it. you know, is it the most potent build out there? Probably not. I mean, obviously it's not, you know, the highest damage or the tankiest ever, but it's very, I think it's mechanically very fun, and it has very cool avenues of scaling, and yeah, I've really been enjoying it. It has made my League experience very fun, and even with the early game struggles of me being stubborn and not wanting to lightning strike again, and swapping over to this way too early and getting railed for the first, like, you know, 3-4 days of the League. Even with that, I've really been enjoying it, and at this point in the build, I think it's actually really well set up. At least the frame of this, I think, is really solid, and I'm going to just keep improving it as we go. So yeah, I'll have more videos in the future. Hopefully you guys are also enjoying it. I've been having some fun going back to POE 1. It's been an experience. I've forgotten more than I ever thought I would, but it's coming back to me now, and we'll have some more stuff on this in the future. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll be back in the next one.